you had some medical issues. What were the nature of those, if you don't mind?
I had a massive heart attack in 2016, where my LAD was 100% blocked, and actually, my heart stopped at the hospital, where it took they coded me for 7 minutes to get me back, and then yeah.
Wow. How old were you at the time?
39 years old.
Wow, that's young for a heart attack for sure. So, any thoughts any indication as to why that occurred? Was there anything prior to that would give you a hint that was going to happen?
Well, looking back on it, I had there was 4 bouts of pain that I had right in the center of my stomach, and the whole time I thought it was gastritis because I've had that before, but it was definitely a lot worse, like 10 times worse than the gastritis that I had before. And every time was when I was working out. Like first time happened was when I was in jiu-jitsu. We had a hard workout, and I felt like super weak. I had that pain, and then I laid down right after class, and it took about 30-45 minutes to go away. And then I kind of didn't feel right the rest of the day. And all the other times that it happened, it was in about a 2-week span. It was when I was working out, like my daughter's class for jiu-jitsu. I was helping teach, and I had that pain again, just playing around with the kids. And I think 3 times in jiu-jitsu, and then another time was at work where we actually had a fire, and I got done with the fire, and I was just totally spent. The final time was I was at home, and I hadn't worked out and it was really hard in those couple of weeks, and I was like, man, I got to get a workout in. So I put the Insanity workout in. And that pain was just, oh God, I've never felt anything like that. I got a super high pain tolerance, and that floored me. My girl was at work, and I called her up, and I'm like, hey, and I guess she could tell from the tone of my voice, and I never asked for help. I was like, hey, can you take me to the hospital, because I just don't feel good. So she's driving on to the hospital. And the whole time I'm thinking it's my stomach, because I had called in sick within those 2 weeks at work because I wasn't feeling good. And then I went to an urgent care, and they thought the same thing. They thought it was my stomach. So they gave me some stuff for my stomach, and it always lasted about 30-45 minutes, somewhere around that area. And so I get down to the hospital, she's taking me to the hospital, and I get in the door, and, I guess the nurses saw me, and they might not look good. So they brought me in, and they were like, okay, take him right to this room. And then, it was just me and my girl in the room. And finally the nurse came in, and she's like, oh, what's going on? And I told her what was going on. And she was like, all right, we're going to run some tests. And she started a line on me. And by the time she started a line on me, I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out. Then next thing I know, I feel a shock, and I couldn't see anything. And I was like, who the F just defibrillated me? And then the doctor, I guess there was just me, the nurse, and my girl in the room. The last thing I remembered. Now there was probably like 20 people in there, and the doctor was like, yeah, "It's me," and he's like, "Don't go into VFib again," and I won't. And then I was like, "Did my heart stop?" Again, that's the first thing I thought. I was like, "Did my heart stop?" And they're like, "Yeah." And then then it became really real, and then I was like, "Oh my God." So then they got me, they put me in an ambulance because there was no cath lab at that hospital, shipped me out to another hospital, which was like 15 minutes away, 20 minutes away, did a cath, found out it was 100% blocked LAD. I had some collateral circulation, and then I spent ICU time.
Wow. Well, that doesn't sound very fun. So, no. I mean, and you mentioned, because you're in the fire department, and generally there's physical fitness standards, and of course you've been doing jiu-jitsu. I guess you're a black belt now, so you've been doing this for a number of years. Regular exercise, reasonably fit person. They probably wouldn't have suspected heart attack, just looking at your presentation. Typically, I mean, other than some of the pain which they discovered. So, I mean, why do you think you had a heart attack at 39? Was there some other indication was going on, or what was going on there? You weren't like a chain smoker or nothing like that, right?
No. What the doctor said why they thought it happened was I had a familiar hypercholesterolemia. Mm-hmm. And but what I think was the problem was lack of sleep and my diet, really. Because I would have 0 to 8 hours of sleep or whatever it was, and I would go to jiu-jitsu. It didn't matter. I would just go first thing, get off in the morning, and go to jiu-jitsu. And my sleep, I was never a good sleeper, and I would just push through it. I just being too tough for my own good. And diet wise, I mean, I would literally work out 2 or 3 times a day to try to lose weight. And I'll do 2 days, 3 days just so that I lose weight. And I never really knew about diet. All I knew was, eat chicken and brown rice and salads and stuff like that to lose weight. And, I never could stick to that for too long.
So, I mean, I just want to go back because you said the doctor said you had familial hypercholesterolemia, which would indicate that you had very high cholesterol. Was that something that was known prior to this event? Had you had blood work prior to it?
Yeah, I actually I found some paperwork that I had, and I wrote a little my labs throughout the years, and like bad numbers and stuff like that. And I didn't know much about cholesterol at the time, and I was never really taught that cholesterol was so important. They went over the numbers with me, and they would fluctuate from year to year. Like 1 year would be okay, the next year it wouldn't be, and then a couple of years will be bad, and the next year would be okay.
So, I mean, just ballpark, I mean, were you like hovering above and below 200 typically, or what, milligrams per deciliter? Do you remember the numbers?
Yeah, I got them written down right now. My highest total cholesterol was 349.
Yeah.
My highest triglycerides were 355.
Mm-hmm.
My highest LDL was 333, but I averaged around 150 LDL throughout the years I was working. My HDL, the highest it was 61, but I averaged between 40 and 50.
Mm-hmm.
But then after I started Carnivore Diet, it totally changed for sure. Everything. But those were my numbers during that time, and then they never did like a fasting insulin or a CRP or anything like that.
Yeah. So I mean, it was, so total cholesterol was anywhere between 200 and 330 or something like that. Sounds like based on those numbers.
Yeah.
Okay. So they say you got high cholesterol, you have a heart attack, and you feel that maybe not. The diet. Now you're wearing a Gracie Ba shirt. I see that jiu-jitsu, and they have the Gracie diet is a sort of pseudo plant-based diet. It's not vegan or anything like that, but I think did you ever subscribe to that particular philosophy or try that stuff?
I actually bought the book after all the stuff happened to me, but I bought so many other books to try to research of why or what to eat, and which is crazy because the initial cardiologist that I went to, I asked him, I was like, okay, this is the point in time I really got to figure out diet. And then I asked him, he's like, oh, just go look on the internet and just find a diet there. He didn't give me any direction or anything like that. I was like, you got to give me more than that. And he's like, well, the best diet you can get is the Mediterranean diet. But you could just tell that, he just didn't know what he was talking about. And so, but when I bought the Gracie book, a buddy of mine had told me about the vegan diet. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, he's like, go watch Forks Over Knives and you'll see how it's going to help you. So of course I'm like, I'll do anything at this point. You get your back to the wall, you'll do anything. So I go watch Forks Over Knives and I'm like, okay, well, if I got to eat, I've always been told vegetables are good for you. So I was like, if I got to eat vegetables, so be it, because I can't let this happen to me again. So I go on the vegan diet, for about a year. I had torn my ACL in jiu-jitsu while I was on the diet. And I was in a move where I've been in there a ton of times and I should never have torn anything. And it just like exploded my ACL. And after that, I was like, man, and I just never felt good, never had the energy. All my joints always ached. And I'm like, I really got to do this research on my own. So what I started to do is actually using a little common sense. I would still go by the firehouses every once in a while because I still play the bagpipes. And then, I play for the department. And I would notice that the guys that were on the keto diet, they all were talking about how they felt better. They felt good. Their labs were doing great. And I'm like, you know what? There's something to this, so I really started researching into it. And then as I was researching into it, I'm like, let me just do it. Let me just do it and see how I feel. So I went on that and, like my brain always like, I got to make sure. So I'm constantly researching. And that's where I found, I saw Tom DeLauer. He's the one that I got the keto diet from and his guide and such like that. And as I'm researching, Ken Berry came up, you came up, Paul Saladino came up, and then I kept seeing carnivore, and as I'm doing a keto diet, I noticed that I'm only wanting to eat the meats, like all the vegetables or anything else. I was like not really wanting. So then I was like, I was on the keto diet for about a year, and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to try this carnivore diet and see how I feel. And as soon as I went on the carnivore diet, I was like, I'm never looking back. I felt so great. Everything was getting better. I was able to push harder in the gym, and working out at the regular weight gym, and also at jiu-jitsu. And it was just, I can't turn around now.